If you're wanting the best car deal, don't say you're paying cash. We've all heard the expression that cash is king, but since I started this business in the year 2000, cash has never gotten a customer a better deal. Now we have to go back more than 40 years just to figure out why dealerships actually encourage customers to pay cash to avoid financing. Primarily, it happened in the mid 20th century, roughly from like the 1940s to the early 1980s. This preference was largely due to several factors. First and foremost, the lack of in-house financing options. So the dealers did not have that person that would sell you the warranty and get your interest rate and have you sign all the paperwork. That didn't start catching on until the late 70s. So they also wanted simpler transactions, and they also wanted to minimize risk. And minimizing risk because they didn't know how this stuff worked as we do today. But most importantly, the reason why, the number one reason why they wanted this was higher profit margins. So back in the 70s and 80s, interest rates were nowhere near what they are even in 2024 when we had higher interest rates. They were nowhere near what they are today. You may have to buy the money from the bank at 24% interest, but the max usury laws in the States may have been 18 or 19%. So the dealers actually doing financing in-house cost them money. So that's when the dealer said, hey, listen, we'll give you a better deal if you pay cash. We'll give you a better deal if you go get your money from somewhere else and bring it to us. And that's where cash is king became a thing. Let's start off with buying a new car. If you're buying a brand new car, manufacturers at times will produce a rebate for you to finance with them. That doesn't mean you have to finance with them forever. That just means you have to initially pay for the vehicle on a bank contract. If you pay that off in 30 days or 10 days or whatever the case may be, you're not going to lose that rebate. So there is the first example of where a cash buyer automatically loses out. For example, I just purchased a fairly expensive Audi RSQ8, and the dealership said, hey, listen, if you finance with us, we will give you $1,000 under MSRP on the car. And I said, okay, well, what type of rates do you have? Well, 7.75. I'm like, well, that's not gonna happen. I can tell you that because I was planning on financing and I was able to finance at 4.99 rates. So therefore, that $1,000 was not enticing to me. But if you're a true cash buyer and you're stroking a check, take the $1,000 and pay it off in a month. My trademark saying, buying a car doesn't have to suck, and I live and breathe this every single day. And one thing that I always do when I'm out buying a car is I always put it on me. What can I do to make it not suck? We already know the dealership is gonna make it suck, right? So what can you do to make it suck? And when you walk into a dealership and you're like, I'm paying cash, listen, the salesman already lost interest because they get spiffs of you buying a warranty. If you buy Gap, they get spiffs if you finance sometimes, depending on the dealership's pay plan. They immediately is like, ah, crap, I'm done here. And in today's world where we can negotiate again post-pandemic, the dealerships are typically paying their salesmen $100 to $200 on a new car deal. So if you take 3 and 4 hours to purchase a car, the car salesman doesn't like that in any way, shape, or form on new car deals. So you walking in saying, hey, I'm not gonna finance, I'm gonna pay cash, you've already lost negotiating power there because the salesman is gonna work against you with his management team to make sure that you can pay higher and negotiate less. And most importantly, the sales manager is not going to be willing to concess on a front end gross deal with you buying a car if they know they cannot make it up in the back end. Finance reserve, extended warranties, Gap, tire and wheel, key replacement, all stuff that I talk about in the 12 things you should never purchase at a car dealership, which you can see at the end of the video. But those things they know that you're never gonna buy because the cash buyer percentage of people buying those is less than 10% and probably in some cases less than 1%. So they automatically know they're not gonna cut their front end gross on a car deal so you can not buy that stuff as well. The biggest thing you have to know is where the dealerships actually make their money. A lot of people think, hey, buying new cars and used cars is where they make their money. That is completely false. Dealerships work on a net profit of 1 to 2%. And I know the comment section is gonna go crazy on this, that I gotta be wrong or I'm lying or whatever the case may be. Hey, I'm in fan for dealers. Like, I get all that. Since 2011, I've been making videos all in favor of the consumer. And I think when you go back to 2011 videos, you can see that I'm in fact for the consumer over the dealer. The dealers are always gonna be here. But the fact of it is you need to understand where the dealerships actually make a lot of their gross profit, and that's with finance reserve. So if you say, hey, I'm paying cash, now that dealership knows that they're not gonna finance the car with them and they're not gonna get any finance reserve. And the biggest thing that I can stress nowadays as being a salesperson in this industry, being a used car manager, a new car manager, a general sales manager, and now the owner of a company, used car managers, new car managers, and finance managers, they don't know some of the things that I know as an owner of the company, because these places, these vendors that we have, they open up to you a little bit more where the real profit actually comes to. And again, as a former salesperson that you see in all sorts of videos out there, or a former manager, or been in the business for this amount of years, that stuff kind of goes by the wayside, because this business is extremely fast and it's ever evolving. For example, every former salesperson out there is going to talk about, oh, they make 2%. So you're going to go in there trying to negotiate the interest rate down on a finance deal, and you're going to be negotiating against yourself, because it's simply not true, and you're going to think the dealership's a liar. These banks nowadays are marking up their rates from the get-go. We as dealerships don't know what their base rate would be, and they are paying a finance reserve flat, say $50,000. The dealership will get a 5% flat on that $50,000. So now take that in the eyes of the dealership as a business owner. If I can't get that finance reserve of 5% on $50,000, why would I want to give you a good deal on that new or used car you're buying? Because I had just lost out on this free money that is probably more than a discount. Now, the biggest thing out of this whole video is if you are a cash buyer, of how to negotiate the proper way. Even if you are not a cash buyer, this video is very informative to you to understand how the whole process works. And if you're wondering what this number is here, as the owner of the dealership, we donate to people in need. So for every 100 cars we sell, our Keys to Empower program donates to a family or an individual in need that we find through some charities all around the country. And you can see we got 48 more to go. We started at 100 and go down, and that's a great program that we do here at our dealership. So when you're negotiating a car, we all know we negotiate it in three parts: vehicle that you're purchasing, the financing part of it, and then the trade-in, which we'll get into a biggest portion of the trade-in down the road. But you got to remember that we have to negotiate the purchase price of the car first. And if they're going to bring up, are you financing, are you paying cash, you just got to tell them that you haven't decided yet. You're capable of doing both. You might just do a big down payment and finance a little bit of it. You may just pay cash for all of it, or you may just finance all of it depending on the rates. But that doesn't matter, because I have to be able to purchase the car before I can figure out how I'm going to pay for the car. And you got to say it exactly that way. There's a saying in the car business that when a customer wants to know, hey, can I buy an extended warranty? The dealership never wants to tell you that, because you've got to buy a car before you can buy extended warranty. So if the dealership is asking for the financing, you've got to tell them exactly what I just said. And it's like, well, you know, I'm capable of doing both. I might pay cash. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. I might do a big down payment and finance the balance, or depending on the rates, I may finance the whole thing. Now you're leaving a lot of stuff open to interpretation, and you have to focus on getting back on the price. And this is when you got to exactly say, obviously none of that matters, because I've got to purchase the car before I can pay for the car. Now you're flipping that back on them, and it's a very strong close. So now what you need to do is focus on the purchase of the car. And you always want to make sure that you get an itemized list like this right here. And if you want one that you want to scribble on and make sure that they do the right things, you can get this on ChevyDudeStore.com as well. So make sure that you do the purchase of the vehicle first before you move on to the next steps. All right, cash buyer, you hate the process of the car buying, and I get it, but let's say that you are going in and they're like playing hardball with you. How to use their hardball against them to get a better deal, right? So let's say that manufacturer on a new car does want to give you an incentive for financing. Remember, it's a cash deal. It doesn't matter who you pay, if it's the bank that you pay or the dealership that you pay. Imagine buying a $100,000 car at 6% interest. 30 days of interest is $500. If it's a $1,000 win for you, a $1,000 incentive, you're making out $500. Of course, you can call 10 to 12 days after you purchase that car. That deal is most likely funded. You have an account number. If you call that bank and that lender and say, hey, what's my account number so I can set up an online account? Now you just ACH it and be done. And that's that simple. So use that against them to negotiate a lower price. So say they don't have an incentive. Be like, hey, listen, what if I finance with you guys? What if I finance the whole thing? Can I do that and get a better deal? They may say yes. So use that against them to get a lower price on your car. Now I want to keep one thing in mind, because this is a huge thing when you're negotiating. There is a big difference between a small independent dealership like mine, who typically do not have banks to finance with. You have to go get your own financing or just bring cold hard cash. My dealership like this, we don't care how you do it. Luckily, I do have some banks where I can offer in-house financing, but at the end of the day, I don't care about the reserve. I just want to help you buy a car and make it not suck. Now, if you go to a large independent dealership or a large franchise dealership, that may be a whole lot different, because that big independent dealership that doesn't have a manufacturer backing it has probably been around a long time and has lots of banks like a normal franchise dealership. So keep that in mind when you're negotiating at all different sizes and shapes and makes of cars dealerships out there, that you are doing it the right way.